Welcome to another episode of NBA 2K19 roster edits with Remember the Great Sports. It's been a little while since I posted one of these, so today I'm going to do a pretty short and sweet video. This is the all-time Houston Rockets. The Houston Rockets are a very storied franchise. Won a couple championships. To be honest with you, NBA 2K19 did a really good job with this all-time roster, and I only have one correction, or one addition, I should say. So let me just go through the stock roster that's on your game, and we will start from there. Alright, so you have the center, Hakeem Olajuwon, Moses Malone as a backup center. However, I put him at power forward on this team. You can either do that or you can do Elvin Hayes, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Your starting shooting guard at James Harden, Drexler, Tracy McGrady, and we'll talk about him in a little bit as well. You got Yao Ming on the team. You have Calvin Murphy at your starting point guard, a Hall of Famer. You have Chris Paul. You have Ralph Sampson, Rudy Tomjanovich, Steve Francis, backup point guard, Elvin Hayes at power forward, Kenny Smith, a backup point guard, Otis Thorpe is a power forward center, and Vernon Maxwell, Mad Max, as a backup shooting guard. So the only one that I would recommend is removing Chris Paul. This is only because Chris Paul hasn't been with the Rockets that long. As you can see, as of going into the 19 season, he only spent 2 years with the Rockets. One of the things that I try to follow on this game is having a minimum of at least 3 years with the team before I put you on the all-time roster. So with that criteria, maybe we'll get to that this year, but as of right now, this is my recommendation. That is the beauty of this game. You can make this however you like. But with Calvin Murphy at point guard, Steve Francis as a backup point guard, and Kenny Smith as a backup point guard, you kind of see the problem here. There's 4 point guards. And if you even want to get technical, James Harden and Tracy McGrady are also kind of point guard, shooting guard, small forward types that also run the point. So technically you're looking at 6 guys that can bring the ball up the court on your team, which is really unnecessary. The other thing about this roster is they have too many centers. You know, you have Olajuwon, you have Moses, you have Yao, and you have Ralph Sampson. Now all these guys are Hall of Famers, so there has to be some concessions made with, putting Moses Malone at, power forward. So, with that, stay with me and I'll show you the one roster edit. Alright, so here's my starting lineup. I got Calvin Murphy at the starting point guard, James Harden at the shooting guard. But here's a change that I made. Instead of Tracy McGrady being listed as a shooting guard, I changed his position to small forward, which actually increases his rating. So McGrady is your starting small forward, as Harden's your starting shooting guard, even though they technically played the same position. The other option is you could put Drexler in the small forward role. However, I recommend putting McGrady there because I feel McGrady was a little better than Drexler at this point in their careers. McGrady was probably at near the peak of his game, where Drexler was kind of on the back end of his career when he came to the Rockets to win his championships. So he's a very formidable backup shooting guard. However, if you prefer Drexler over McGrady in the small forward slot, that certainly works. The other thing that I mentioned is moving Moses Malone from center to power forward. Hakeem Olajuwon at your center then. Now, this can be interchangeable, I suppose. However, 97 and 98 are pretty good ratings for your power forward and center. You can move Yao Ming at center and Sampson at center. Olajuwon to power forward. You can mix them around. So, with that being said, you have 2 backup big guys, and we're talking big guys. Yao is 7'6", and Sampson's 7'4". So, they're pretty much slotted in as centers. Although, you can definitely put them out there and have the twin towers on the floor at all times. So those are your backup, first 3 backups. This is your backup small forward. That's Rudy Tomjanovich, or Rudy T. Very good Rocket for a long time. Also, going to reveal that he is the coach of this team as well. So he definitely is a good backup. Steve Francis, or Stevie Franchise, is the backup point guard. He kind of bounced around a little bit in his career, but his best years, as you can see, were as a Houston Rocket. His first few years in the league. And very formidable scoring point guard. Very good guy to have on your team as a backup. Here's your backup power forward, a Hall of Famer, Elvin Hayes. Now, if you prefer to have Elvin Hayes in your starting lineup, that's very possible as well. I actually feel that NBA 2K kind of underrated him. I feel that he's a little better than an 87, to be honest with you. But I guess at the end of his career, as you can see, he started his career in Houston, went to Washington. Spoiler alert, he's on the all-time Wizards Bullets team. But he also finished his career in Houston, and I feel they focused more on his last few seasons other than his first few seasons, because you can see he was a beast. 27.5, 28, 25 points a game his first few seasons with Houston. Alright, so this is my first creation on this team, and only creation on this team, and that is Robert Reid. And a lot of you are going to be like, who the heck is Robert Reid? Well, Robert Reid was a small forward shooting guard that spent 10 seasons with the Houston Rockets. He played for them during an era that was not great. However, I feel he fits in pretty nicely with this team as a nice, rugged, small forward shooting guard option. When you have all the interchangeable parts on this team. You have a lot of big guys, so you kind of need some more small forward shooting guards on this team. And Robert Reid spent 10 seasons with the Rockets. He averaged about 12 points a game over those 10 seasons with them. Played shooting guard as well. Wasn't a real big three-point shooter because that was before the three-point line really existed. So he really doesn't have three-point abilities. However, he's a good mid-range scorer to bring off the bench if that's, something that you'd like to do as your 12th man, as you can see. And my 13th man is another guard, point guard, Kenny Smith, shooting guard. I would say if you were going to get rid of a player off of this team, I would probably be leaning towards Vernon Maxwell and putting Chris Paul over him. Vernon Maxwell, was a great player. However, I feel with this Hall of Fame lineup, he just doesn't crack the lineup quite over Robert Reid or Kenny Smith. Otis Thorpe, I feel Otis Thorpe could be on this team. It just kind of depends on how you want to go with your roster. If you prefer to play a big man roster, Otis Thorpe over Kenny Smith. However, I feel Kenny Smith can be slotted in either the point guard or shooting guard, and the same with Reid at small forward or shooting guard. Whereas if you put Otis Thorpe out there, you've got him backing up Elvin Hayes, essentially. Rudy Tomjanovich can also play the 4 at power forward. And then you have Ming and Sampson, and that's way too many big guys out on the floor, for your backup. So that's why I feel Kenny Smith is the best fit for this. All right, so your coach, Rudy Tomjanovich. That's the best I could do, with the picture. He is the head coach, and I put Sam Cassell down as the assistant coach. If many of you know who Sam Cassell is, he played for the Rockets. His first few years in the league was on the championship teams. Your other option is Mike D'Antoni as your assistant coach. However, I felt Cassell was a player as a Rocket, so I thought he'd be a pretty nice assistant coach. And he's already on the game. You don't have to create him or anything. Rudy T, like I said, I'm making him as close as I could with his appearance, but, again, the options aren't there to really edit your coaches like I feel they could be. So, in closing, I hope you agree with my all-time Rockets lineup. This is a, pretty short video, so hopefully you enjoyed it, and stay tuned for the next one. Thanks.